All right, welcome back again. So we've got an awesome zap. Just teasing, it says "Hello World." What we want to do next is we want to add the ability to submit answers. So in order to submit answers, you're going to have to do a couple things. One is you're going to have to add back those two scripts that I tried to add last time. Still a little bitter, by the way, that it didn't run with empty scripts. Go ahead and make them this time. I promise you, I'll put them back. I like to move them to the top. So I like to make one script called main. That's actually where I'm going to put all of my code. And then I'm going to make another one called ClueKeeper is what the other one's going to be called. The name for main can be different. You can actually name it whatever you want, but ClueKeeper should look exactly like this. So all lowercase, the word ClueKeeper smushed together. And we'll show you what we're going to do with those. I personally like to move them up to the top of my tree, but that's an optional thing as well. All right, so we're gonna use these two scripts to submit answers. In order to submit answers, you're gonna need to use this ClueKeeper Zapper library. So I've already got this tab open somewhere else. So here's the ClueKeeper Zapper library over on this GitHub page. Don't worry, you don't have to contribute to GitHub or anything like that. This is just where we save the source code. Inside this GitHub repository, there's just a couple things. There is the source code for the library itself, and then there's a couple examples. So you can see there's a couple ZPPs. That's kind of like a zip of Zap, right? It's fun to say. And then the other thing you'll notice on this is that there's instructions for like how do you install it. So you create a new Zap, you make a new script, you call that script ClueKeeper, and then you paste the entire contents of this file into that script. Well, that's easy. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I like to just click on this link. It'll just take me to the stuff I need to copy in. So you just do a Control-A, a Control-C, and then you come over here into your ClueKeeper script and you just paste it in. So this is the library. We always keep updating it, so make sure that you go grab the latest. And then if you come back over to the instructions, let's hit the back arrow here. It says, so paste it into that area. And then within your other script files, you import the library with this line. So I'm going to come over to my main method here. So I've kind of got my main function, and I'm just going to put in this ck equals symbol.nodes.cluekeeper.ck. So if you care about this, symbol.nodes just kind of refers to this tree. .cluekeeper is the name of the script. That's why the name had to be the exact same thing. And then we're grabbing an object out of there called CK. You don't have to look at this code at all. You don't ever have to open it. We tell you what it does in the documentation that's over here. So there's a number of things you can do with this library. The only one that we actually care about, play sounds is fun. The only one we care about is submit string. So submit string is what submits, the answer if you're inside of a clue, or the start code if you're on the start page. And the way it works is pretty simple. You say ck.submitString, and then you just say what string you want to submit. So that'll be easy. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and copy this over just as a reminder, and I'm going to put it over here in main. And so I'm going to comment it out because I need something kind of like that. All right, so now what we need is we need a time to submit it, and we need to decide what we're going to submit. So let's hop back over to ClueKeeper, and we want to do a couple more things. The first thing I'm going to do is on my clue, I'm going to hide the solve button. So I'm just going to save that up. The reason I'm hiding the solve button is because I don't want them to type in anything. I just want it to be solved from within the Zap. And what I want the solution to be, right now it says Hello World, I'm going to just edit that and make it say red pill. And so we're going to submit red pill at some time. And obviously in the final Zap, we're going to use a tracking image and have the red pill and the blue pill, and that's great. But initially here, what we're going to do is we're just going to show a button. We're going to show a button on the screen. It's going to say the word solve on it, and when you click it, it's just going to solve the clue. It's going to be really simple. Let's go ahead and use this as a learning opportunity, though. So right now we've kind of got our portrait center, and what it is it's in what's called the screen reference frame. The screen reference frame is centered on your screen, so as you move it around, it stays in the middle. There's a couple different reference frames, though. Portrait center is one of them. And the reason it's got this relative to property and it says nothing, so it's relative to the root, and you can see that the root is relative to Z screen. There's actually a couple different things you can do though. There's Z screen, which is in the middle, Z screen left, which when you're in landscape it's on the left, when you're in portrait it's the top. So we're going to use that one in a minute. Right would be the bottom, and then there's a couple others that I'm not too worried about, and you can see your other nodes show up in here too. So why did I give you that little speech? I gave you that little speech because this is things that are in the portrait center, but we're going to make a new group. So right click and say new group, and we're going to make a new group called portrait top. And what we're going to do in portrait top is we're going to add some instructions to portrait top. So portrait top needs to rotate 90 degrees. That's what kind of makes it portrait. And then we also want it to be relative to Z screen left. So it's called left because Zapper always thinks about, or ZapWorks Studio always thinks about landscape, and what's left in landscape is at the top at portrait. So I call it portrait top, and you can see that if I move the text from portrait center onto the portrait top group, it shoots up to the top. Now it's slightly off the screen up there, so we need some way to pull it down. One thing you can normally do is you can use position. You can grab these arrows, but it's actually so high I can't even grab it. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to take portrait or hello world, and I'm going to make its position be -0.1. So there it is. Great. And instead of calling it hello world, I'm going to rename it to instructions. And it's pretty common for me to kind of have instructions that are up at the top of your screen. The nice thing about my portrait top is that no matter what the aspect ratio of your device is, it's always at the top. Some people, by the way, they use portrait center and they just kind of like put it at the top. That's really dangerous because different aspect ratio devices, it might be off the screen, right? So for example, like iPad is not near the aspect ratio of like an iPhone 6. And so always, if you want something to be at the top, make sure you use a trick like this, portrait top, where you make it relative to Z screen left. All right, enough of that little rant. So it says instructions. My instructions right now are going to be click the button to solve this clue. I don't really care what your instructions are. And you can see that it does some things based on an 18 lines that looks pretty good. If you wanted to, you can move it down just a little bit more, but I'm not really too worried about it. The next thing we want is we want a button, and I do want this button to be in the middle of the screen. Buttons are interesting in ZapWorks Studio because there's no actual button. Really what there is there are planes, which are clickable, and then there's text, which you just kind of put on top of your plane. Since there's two pieces to a button, what I choose to do is I choose to make a group. So I right click on my portrait center. I'm going to make a new group, and this is called my solve button group. And then I drop my two pieces in there. So I'm going to need a plane, and then I'm also going to need some text. And what it does is it has a dependency order here, and things that are lower get shown on top. So I actually want my plane behind the text, so that my text kind of shows up on top of it. And then I choose to name the things in my tree. So this is my solve button text. And then the plane, which is just like, a two-dimensional plane. This is my actual solve button. So this is the thing you're going to click. Whenever I make a button, I like to set up the text first. Whenever I do text, I do the same things. I make it wrap. I make it some number of lines, depending on how big I want it. So we'll do 10 again. And then I make it center. So there my text is there in the middle. And then I'm going to make this text just say solve. So this is my solve button. Doesn't look like a button yet because my plane here looks terrible. The first thing I want to do is I want to pick a color. You can pick any color you like. I'm going to use kind of a medium red here. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to kind of resize that plane so it looks like a button. There's scale, rotate, and position up here. These are all very handy. I'm going to grab scale. When you grab scale, there's kind of two ways you can use scale. One is you can click into the box here, and that kind of moves both of them together. The other thing you can do is you can grab a handle and it moves only that one. So you can just play with it to your heart's content until it looks about how you want. I'd say that looks like a button to me. And then one nice thing about having them in a group is now they will move together, right? So you can actually move your button and your text that's on it kind of together by moving the group, right? All right, so now we've got a button that we can click, which is great. We just need to listen for clicks. So here's how you do this in ZapWorks Studio. It's pretty easy. So you go to your main script and you drag in the solve button. Notice that there's the group, the text, but then the actual button is a plane, and we drag it over. You do have to be careful when you click and drag like this that you don't actually select it, because if you select it, it will jump out of the script. I guess I can do it wrong here, right? So if you click it, it does this, and you're like, ah, dang, I didn't do that. So you have to go back to here, and then you have to drag it over again. When you drag something over, you can do a couple things. You can insert a local variable, or you can add an event handler. What I want to do here is I want to add an event handler. Since it's a button, I typically use pointer up, so it's actually when they let off the button that it calls my function. And so you can see that it stubs in some code here for you, which is a little hard to read. Sorry about that. I think that's about all the more screen real estate I've got. And what we want to do is it says, so first we can read it. So symbol nodes, that just kind of means, hey, my hierarchy. Solve button, so this solve button. On pointer up, so whenever this event happens, this pointer up event, then call this function. If you're familiar with JavaScript, maybe you've seen the word function. These days people use what's called a fat arrow function. So the parameters coming into the function is there's an event E, which I don't care about, and then there's the code that you put inside this callback. So this is code that runs when the button is clicked, and what I want to do here is I want to submit a string. Get rid of those extra comments. And in this case, I want to submit the right answer, so I'm just going to say red pill. Notice that matched exactly with what I typed into ClueKeeper, so it's your job to kind of make a match, right? And so now when somebody clicks that button, it's going to solve it, which is great. Let's see if it all works. So I'm going to go ahead and publish it, and I'll just select the same one as before, so red pill, blue pill. So I'm just going to kind of override that. So it's doing its thing. I suppose I ought to bring up my app again. Make sure you reset it because we just changed the answer, right? So make sure you've reset it. So mine's been reset. And then what I want to do is I'm going to enter my start code, which is just go to start my hunt. And then down the rabbit hole, the first thing you'll notice is that there's no solve button. So no longer is there a solve button present. And when I hit scan, what happens is it pops up and it unlocks, which is great. And it says, click the button to solve this clue. And I was kind of over this tracking image, but to be honest, it doesn't do anything yet. It just says, click the button to solve this clue. And so whenever I click solve, it just says, this will be your final answer. And you'll say yes. And so you can see that you've actually submitted to ClueKeeper from within the Zap, which is pretty neat, right? And we got it right. It was red pill. If you wanted to play it again, you could. It would just be really boring. And so I know it's lame. Like, we didn't do anything truly useful here, but we showed you a powerful skill. And that powerful skill is submitting from within a Zap. We also taught you a little bit about the different frames. So you learned about center versus top. We also showed you a little bit about how buttons set up. There's a lot of these little like nuances to ZapWorks Studio, and you really need to know some of these fundamentals. So we wanted to put together this series for you. All right, so that was great. The only thing that we kind of lacked here, I'm going to go ahead and reset it, is that we weren't using a trigger image. So come back next time and we'll show you a little bit more about using trigger images. See you then. Bye.